Welcome to the Compiler Video Magazine. This is the Epson AP3250 dot matrix printer. It produces near letter quality print with 6 selectable fonts and many type styles. With this foam padding, the 24-dot print head stays relatively quiet. Here's a demo of all the printer's functions. All the fonts, typefaces, and styles are selected by sending printer codes, much like display codes, to the printer. Of course, any computer can use the Epson Action Printer 3250. I have started work on a plain English module to send the printer codes themselves. I think you will agree that the output is very much near letter quality. Epson calls these codes ESCP2. There is a new version of KW Saver for K Windows. It provides a screen buffer so you can have your savers do a few tricks with the current screen. KW Saver is by Joel Matthew Hegberg. You can find it on Delphi or your favorite BBS. KW Saver also now has this KWSE editor to select and deselect active screensavers and enable and disable them. And of course test them. KW Saver is freeware, and there are a lot of great screensavers packed in of Joel's design. There are also sleep zones, never sleep zones, the double click tells you when you're in the zone. Right now I have it set that if I have the pointer in the zone, it will never sleep. This is convenient for programs that you do not want a screensaver to interrupt. Of course, there you see the utilities that I've given to you in the last compiler disk supplement. I have not updated it yet. Hope to have it remember where you last placed the icon. People we endorse but are in no way affiliated with Digigrade Productions are Glenside Color Computer Club, Subetha Software, Kayla Software, The Tape Company, Blackhawk Enterprises, the new supplier of the MM1, Hawksoft, Delmar, and of course, the people responsible for it all, the makers of OS 9, Microware Systems Corporation. Remember this guy? Remember how enthusiastic he used to be? Remember the problem? I'll let you watch this 5 minutes of footage to help clarify it again.
Currently, I have a note in Indiana, unless somebody else wants to take charge of it.
I mean, there's obviously a whole lot on Delphi and a whole lot on SCI.
But a specific OS 9 users group node or
Yeah.
board or something like that, which would be current and not copied over 15,000 different other boards. You know, because that way it's easier to maintain because it's in one physical location.
It's very expensive for the users. I had set up a kind of thing like that with a different vehicle, and if I got 3 calls a week, it was a lot. And to run a BBS on 3 calls a week is just...
If you got the newsletter with the title of information, listing of what's available, then it would spark an interest and say, yes, I'd like to get that. I'd spend 25 cents, maybe $1, $2, $10 to download that particular program off the board if I had to call Hawaii or whatever, you know.
But on the other hand, you could also request the disk and have it within 3 days.
If you really, you know, depending on which media you wanted it, but at least, you know,
If it's online system, it's part of that network, you know, something.
right, but I'm just saying, you know.
It's possible. It's possible in both directions. So that those people who don't like telecommunications or don't have that capability or whatever can still do it by disk. It's still available to everyone.
Two methods of
Right.
communication.
I think what's important is just making things available as many ways as we can.
Mm-hmm.
Via anonymous FTP for those who have access to that.
Sure.
Over the networks, over BBS, over local BBS, through
Whatever's possible.
As long as we do have some way to communicate and enough people in touch, we can get around all the obstacles. Because
Right.
I'm off on my own on Genie for most of the part. But if I know that there's something out on the internet, I can talk to enough people and I can get it.
Right.
If I know there's something on Delphi, I can talk to enough people and I can get it. I have problems getting a lot of things because I don't have enough connections. But if I could go and I could get in touch with the OS 9 users group and say, hey, look, I'm trying to find this. I don't have Firewall, I don't have internet, I don't have Genie.
Exactly right.
Then it doesn't matter what I don't have.
That's
as
right.
long as I
That's
can.
right. Because if you have a central source to go to,
Exactly.
and that's what we would try to be.
Exactly.
Exactly what we will try to be is a central source.
so everything would get easier and also cheaper, I would say. If you have to look around on all the BBS internet nodes, it gets quite expensive. To send them a letter,
So if they've got
phone,
maybe
all
a
that I
central
need this
listing
and this,
they keep where we have available the.
it gets quite expensive. To send them a letter, so if they've got phone, all that I need this and this,
They keep where we have available.
And that's, well, I shouldn't say that, but everybody thinks I got the loudest mouth anyway, so if you give the guy responsibility, he'll.
Coming up, we have more of the last year's CoCoFEST featuring the mock Glenside Color Computer Club meeting. We also have Ellen and Joel talking about a universal graphical user interface which they hope to develop with the help of input from programmers and users. And finally, Carl Ball, the now president of the OS9 Users Group, shares his thoughts and asks for input on a new publication.
Door open. Open the door. Let the games begin. Play ball.
Yeah, I wanted to. Do I click the mail or?
Oh, they were selling two boards at about 8. They were kind of selling them completely. They were selling them as a kit for a while. Yeah, you get a PC case or whatever you want. But if it's so tiny, you can actually stick it in the back of one of the big old floppy disk drive cases.
The flight itself was chased as the upside-down stamp. The pilot shook hands with President and Mrs. Wilson, got in his plane, headed south instead of north, and cracked open a cornfield. The mail he carried was finally delivered by railway.
They're smaller than your fingertip, though, so the margin for error was rather large.
Hang on now. In 1927, the Spirit of St. Louis and its young pilot, Charles Lindbergh, slogged their way across the Atlantic and into the hearts of millions. The 33-hour flight linked New York and Paris, Europe and North America. At takeoff, the plane was carrying so much fuel, it barely got off the ground. stained and weather-beaten after 9 racking days of steady flight, hangs above an entrance to the National Air and Space Museum. In December 1986, with Dick Rutan and Gina Yeager crammed in its tiny cabin, this delicate space-age airplane pulled off one of the last epic flights, non-stop around the world without refueling.
Like a plane with the tail on the back.
It's out there though, but it's just catatonic.
TDI disc.
I've got another boat.
I'm a little jukebox, short and stout. Press my buttons and the music comes out. Change all the colors one by one. Play my games, it's a whole lot of fun. Hi, I'm your cartoon jukebox. Move your star. But I...
No, I don't.
Understanding. I'll find that one.
And never make something
Oh, there was an open chair and I didn't take
let it go. All around the colors is best. Monkey chase the weasel. Monkey shot twirl and cry. Up goes the weasel.
Hey, that's what I do. When fun starts making me do all this fun stuff that I don't want to do.
Yeah, good thing you do.
Like making, that was some work to get that done on time, I tell you.
I'll tell you what, it's all good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I still think there's a couple of things, though, that if we'd have done it a couple of weeks earlier, we'd have benefited from. Because I learned them to be they're better changed.
Programming.
Yep. For example, since they're
And that's, well, I shouldn't say that, but everybody thinks I got the loudest mouth anyway, so I figured give the guy responsibility, he'll straighten up. Did it work? Yeah. Oh, shut up. Okay, I live in Carpentersville, Illinois. December '92 began my life as a cocoa nut, or cocoa knot, or cocoa operator, or whatever. That's been 11 years now, or will be this Christmas. And been through each generation of the cocoa almost, except for the A version, which somebody in here has, or has seen, or they've actually got cocoa number 1. That's Lee Veal. It's got, I think it's a D board, and it's actually serial number 1. It's here in the hotel. I don't know if it's going to be at the booth, but he did have it in his room yesterday. So, you know, got to touch old number 1. Possibly over at Daltrug's booth. So if we would, let's just start down here in the front row and just work our way around the room. This is kind of like an I.O. session, input-output. You tell us who you are, where you're from, and that way we all get to forget everybody's names in 5 minutes. So if we would, please.
Yeah, our names are Pat and Tina Cully. We're from an island off the coast of Maine. I'm trying to run a rural electric cooperative on Cocoa.
Jim Beltramo, Westchester, Illinois.
Scott Montgomery, Chicago.
Bob Swoger, Springwood, Illinois.
I'm from Bryan, Texas.
Tim Mortensen, Antioch, Illinois.
Skip Mellenbacker from Grand Marais, Michigan, up on Lake Superior.
I'm Gordon McCullough from the Manistee Area Computer Club in Manistee on Lake Michigan. From Michigan.
Dave Pellerito, DeKalb, Illinois.
Well, we've had smaller meetings, but usually those were the board meetings or a really bad weather night. I don't believe it. We got a club meeting, and what's it doing outside? Raining. You know, I don't, it's slight sidebar, I don't know how it is in your general areas, if your local clubs, if you have a local club, but better than 50% of the time, now that, you know, let's say whether it's 50-50 proposition, doesn't work out with the Color Computer Club meeting. In a year's time, in 12 meetings that we have in Glenside, I would venture to say 60 to 70% of the meetings we've got either cloudy, rainy, snowy, ice storms, I don't care what it is. I started noticing this about 3 years ago, and it doesn't fail.
How long have you been president?
About 3 years. They're telling you something? Okay, Bob.
I'd like to get something into the agenda that come up there to the podium, the subject being newsletter and a little history of and where we might go with.
Okay. Do that. When do you want to do that? Want to do that now?
I'll do it now.
Okay, why don't I'll give the floor to Bob Swoger, let him give us some information on the newsletters and what we do have as a club membership program.
Okay. My name is Bob Swoger, and from Streamwood, Illinois, and I'm actually a strange person in this club in that I seldom, if ever, use a Radio Shack color computer.
We're trying.
They have tried hard. But let me explain the situation.
We gave him one.
Yeah, they gave me one. Don't take all my thunder away yet. Let me continue here before I lose it. I'm from Motorola, and we have a computer club there. I want to tell you a little about its history because I think it's relevant to what's going on today in the CoCo community. was started in 1978, and I was not part of it. But I had friends that were part of that club, and the nature of computers in those days, if you went to a guy's house, you found literally orange crates that were torn apart with the wood, PC boards, lots of wires, tape to load into the computer, a keyboard lying there, and things were pretty pathetic that people were having fun. In those days, they were using C80 microprocessors. But Motorola came up with a sweet little honey called the 6809, and the club kind of split. Some started building their little boards up with the 6809. There were computers out there for many bucks called the Altier, which was some box with buttons, and how you program it, I don't know. But along came the Radio Shack Color Computer and some of the others, like Commodores, sometimes lovingly called Commodore. They had their VIC-20, Atari had one, and Radio Shack, of course, came out with that first color computer, and I believe it somewhere between $600 down to $400 if you could get it down that far. And boy, did things change. The bucks were too much for people to run right out and get them. A few did. Brought them home. I think they may have had 4K of RAM in it. However, a little computer came out that interested me. For 99 bucks, you could get something out of England called a Sinclair. And did that shake up the community of what I got to call now appliance operators? All of a sudden, the computer prices dropped to around the $250 range, and now any engineer at Motorola could talk his wife into partying with that much money. And all of a sudden, our club looked around and saw 350 users of the Radio Shack Color Computer. I, on the other hand, stayed with the Sinclair, and in 1984, 6 years after the club started, I joined in. Our machine, however, came and went rather quickly because it was brought into this country by Timex, and they marketed their good machine and tried to follow it up with a lesser machine and crashed and burned. So therefore, my computer became an orphan back then. I came to this club as a because I was the newsletter editor of the Motorola group. I had also become the newsletter editor of 4 other groups. And this group interested me because of the camaraderie that I saw. One of the important things was after a meeting, they went to this restaurant. And this restaurant has been fun to us, and you can be more open sitting around the table and helping each other out. When the questions fly, it happens most at the restaurant. Now, we're at a point in the color computer's life that it no longer has a magazine. Did we survive from 1984 until this day? We depended heavily on the user groups. And I've heard many of you here from out of town saying that you're a member of a user group. Our user groups had to get committed to doing a newsletter. I don't care if it was a single page 8x11. Then the user groups had to get committed to swap newsletters with the other groups. That was important. That lets the others know that you're alive and out there. And when you need help, you don't have to get it then only from your own group. Another man down in a retiree down in Florida at the age of 70, when all of the other newsletters that we had died, I'm sorry, not newsletters, but magazines died, he picked up the ball and started a magazine, the sole one that we had left for the computer, the Sinclair. His health started to fail, and the work was a little hard, so he went out fishing, and he passed that newsletter off to a gentleman in Peru, Indiana, who's kept it for the next 3 years. Us folks of the user groups now, when we put out our newsletters and we get magazine-worthy material in the least way, even a single page, our editors spot it and send it off to magazine alive. I've heard that we are working right now to have at least one newsletter. One magazine. I keep slipping back to the word newsletter because I'm the editor of one. But I believe that for CoCo to continue on until after we're gone, that you've got to get a commitment going to make sure that that magazine lives. Furthermore, if your group is getting together, you must get a newsletter out. You really should. Make sure that you get exchanges. We'll let you see ours if you'll let us see yours. That kind of thinking. Let's see. I wanted to do something else and lost it. What we have found is there have been people out there 5, 6 years didn't know, they weren't in any touch with the user group. They didn't, because there was no magazine around. I had a fellow last week come up after 6 years of thinking he was the only guy in the world. He happened to be bending over somebody's car and he mentioned the word Sinclair. It clicked in somebody else's mind, it knew me. They sent him to me. This guy has now swamped with the information and help he's going to get. If you have a little problem with his computer, we're going to take care of it. But you're going to need that kind of thinking. Keep your newsletter alive, pass it around to other people, get your magazine, focus on one and really help it out. Each editor should make sure that your newsletter doesn't scoop your magazine. Get it to the magazine first, you can publish later. One more thing about the newsletters. We have one now that is a national newsletter. It goes out between here and Canada, and I've got to talk about how the money works on this one. There are now people whose user groups have dissolved. Now that they have found that there is a national newsletter, they sign up to it. It costs them $10 a year. The vendors get to put their ads in there free. All they have to do is send an 8x11 or less camera-ready copy, and we put it out in the pages of our newsletter. Now, if you will, the vendors don't have to spend $1 except to copy what it took to send it to us. They're not making much money anymore. They're, if you will, they're probably going to, making room and saying, "Oh, honey, you've got to let me have it. It's helping the community." That sort of thinking. So we've caused it now that the people who sign up for that national newsletter are paying, if you will, to see the vendor ads. Now, I know in this community that there are at least 2 user groups who are still soliciting money from the vendors to run the ads in their newsletters. If that falls apart, the newsletter falls apart, let the word be to those people to rethink and do what we did. As I said, 1984 is when Timex dumped us out. This is 9 years later, and we're still going strong, you might say. Yes, we're losing people to other machines, but there are others that say these machines won't leave the house until my wife gets rid of mine in the box. So pass on that thinking to your user groups and see if they agree with us. Thanks, Will. I didn't explain Gator, but I will.
That's okay. You're really interested in Gator, you'll be in the booth.
Quickly, I got the name Gator. It was given to me. I had a BBS, and nobody knew how to operate it. They called it a swamp. And they asked me to look at it, and I did get it going, so they called me Gator because I made the swamp livable.
I know for the human ear I don't need the microphone. I've known that since 10th grade. I was supposed to get Gettysburg Address, the PA system went down to the town square. The English teacher said they could hear me all the way in the back, and that was like half a block away. Yes, I am the biggest mouth of Glenside at the present time. However, for those recording, it might enhance it a little bit. One of the other things that I do as president is basically write the lead-in article for the newsletter, and that can range anything from sheer nonsense to recollections to discoveries to editorials. And if anybody wants to see anything addressed in there, they can drop me a line or something. There are times when I really have to bite my tongue. Gator has told me more than once, don't put anything negative in. We don't need it. And he's right. I was reminded that again this morning at the service led by Brother Jeremy, which was a good personal message, and very apropos at this particular point in time. Not just with what you see around here, but in some other things that my ears have privy to. And I tell you, it's already toned down my editorial that I was going to have for the next issue. We need to pull together, as Brother Jeremy was saying this morning, more or less. The items for the newsletter, while I may be in front and in the front of the newsletter and in front of the club, this is by far and away Tony Pedraz's Dog and Pony Show. This is Glenside's club. The only reason why I'm up anywhere is because, really, at club meetings, my name keeps coming up, and somebody's got to do the job. We have a lot of dedicated people, and hopefully I'll be able to remember everybody's name in the upcoming newsletter for the credit for this fest. One of whom is really probably the biggest stick in my side. I didn't say thorn. It's Carl Bull, who came in late, sitting down here, first vice president, if you are, a senior vice president. And I'm just introducing him. I'm not having him come up to speak unless he really wants to.
Okay.
And then, yeah, right. And then Tom Shapkis, who just also walked in, has also been very instrumental today in terms of, yesterday, in terms of helping make some things run right and smoothly, as well as anybody that has a red tag on. Scott Montgomery back here, who's been a real good security person for us. I don't know if you've seen any of the blue tags. These are the exhibitors here today and yesterday, and red tags with the second annual CoCoFEST button have been basically security and functionaries. And any one of those guys you see, if you've enjoyed the fest, go up to them and thank them for the work they put in, because there has been a lot of work done. Maybe almost too much to have one next year, but how many would come if we put one on? It's unanimous. Oh, we're having one somewhere. Oh. Okay.
Your house?
No. No.
Tony's basement.
You can't walk. It's almost as bad as George's.
Mr. President, permission to come up there one more time, but you stay there.
2 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
No, 2 minutes you have.
You got 2 minutes.
I gotta be in there to pop the doors at 10.
Okay. Stay here. I wrote an article recently. It hasn't hit our newsletter yet, but I put it in some of the others. And it's what to do with your old gear. Now I'd like you to take this one home too, to your different groups. There are people, though, who will be getting rid of their computers from time to time and move on. We recognize that happens. This creates two things. First off, the people that get rid of them think, boy, let's get this into school and let kids learn about computers. The CoCo's a great computer to learn on. And they'll take these things to the schools. I have been on the inside. I've been at the schools. They love to take it because they love givers. But I'll tell you, they go in the trash. Those schools want only the latest, greatest IBM, whatever. Okay, they want the mainstream stuff. And this stuff winds up in the trash. That's terrible, because now we got another problem. We have people that fall out of the community only, and I've seen the ends, because their computer quit. And they couldn't find a place to fix it. Now they had to get another one, and they didn't want to get another CoCo, or one wasn't available. So, what should you do with the computer if you're getting rid of it? Get it to a user group, a flea market. Make sure that it winds up in the hands of another CoCo person. And here's the second part of the message. If you've got a CoCo, feel as I do, and you want to keep that computer until your end, get backups. Right now I'm finding that the backups are about half the price of the repair cost of what it would be. So at the present time, I have 8 machines stacked up in my closet. Literally.
Proof.
Okay, $25 a LCD. So I took the man in and showed it to him, still in the box. And when one breaks now, I'm down for 10 minutes, because that's all it takes to pull it off the shelf, open it up, slide it in, and I'm in. And I got backups with the backups now. I don't know that I'm completely secure, but boy, do I feel better in this day and age. So if you are getting out of it, help out the guy who wants to stay in it. If you're the guy who's in it and want to stay in it, look at this time for those backups. The prices are phenomenal. I tell you, I'm seeing 40-track drives out here for these computers. Only at the fest do I see that. I can't go to the stores and see those anymore. As they've moved on and up, our stuff, the stuff that's compatible for our machines, is becoming scarce.
Glenside membership base. Get it to the newsletter. That is your communication means. That is the primary communication means to the people now that we are out away from the immediate Chicago vicinity.
But what is the cost of the going Glenside?
$6 for this year.
$6 for the remainder of the year.
$18 for $294.
$18 for $294. And I don't think you're going to find a better bargain for a club membership. I'm serious.
Better bring a shopping cart when you come over, though.
You're going to walk away with more newsletters than you're going to know what to do with, and you won't even have to join the place because we go back about 6 to 8 months, and you might find a solution to your problem then. Anything else? I do have to leave. Yes.
Tony, I just want to give it a thank you. I should have wrote Rick in the letter a long time ago, thanking you all for the prize membership that I won at the Atlanta CoCoFEST. I really enjoyed getting the newsletter, and I re-upped here, and I really appreciate the hard work that you all have gone into and putting on this fest. It's great.
Well, tell the guys on the floor. That's hey, you gotta run, I gotta run, or else I'm going to be pulled out by our second chief of security. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Got anything else? We'll be at the booth.
Time on development time on user interfaces. It's a big part of the development time. I think
every time, like, you've been able to use certain routines from one program to the next, and you've been developing that. But when you originally did checkbook, you basically had to hard code it just for checkbook, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the problem is every time you start, you want to do a program that has pull-down windows, you have to go back and reinvent the wheel. And basically, we just want to get that wheel out there. Show them the screen. This is not fully functional, but basically, it's going to support a library of routines that will give up pop-up boxes that will support a title and whatever text you care to put in there. Now, eventually, it's also going to support dialog boxes which will pop up and request a file name or ask you yes or no or cancel whatever, so it can be used for file saves. And it'll also be able to click and make the box go away, which at this time this doesn't do. Now, you'll notice where the cursor is, there's a square moving around the screen under the MM1 cursor. This is almost a direct port of the Color Computer version. Since you cannot get an arrow pointer on a text screen, what we've done is we just use the text cursor. I mean, it's been done on the DOS application. So instead of positioning an arrow, you're just positioning a block around the screen. And let's face it, it doesn't matter if it looks like a bumblebee or a finger pointing or an arrow, as long as you can point and click. I mean, it does the same thing. If we want to use another 32K screen just to get an arrow, we can do that fine. On the MM1, there's always a mouse that tracks on the screen, so basically we've got a mouse following the cursor around right now, which is a little unusual. Now, if he goes up on one of the menus and clicks, you get a standard pull-down menu. Now, on the Color Computer version, as soon as you pop up an overlay window, your mouse control, the cursor can't move outside that box. It's limited in there, because that's where it is. So if we had just a regular pointer, it would be trapped in this little box, not able to go anywhere. And you have to do some quirky things to make that usable. So what I did on the Color Computer version is once you pull down that menu, the joystick or the mouse just scrolls up and down from choices. On the MM1, it's going to be a little bit different because the mouse can still go everywhere. Like as Joel moves down, it scales the full range to select the option. So, but on the actual MM1 version, it will work like a regular program. When the cursor is on top of the letter, it will highlight. The idea behind this interface is once we get it done, a Color Computer guy can sit down and whip out a program using the Color Computer versions, take the main routines, get it to a guy with an MM1, they can port it, and then in a matter of days they've got an MM1 version. To a certain extent, there's some reverse portability. Some basic applications can be ported from the MM1 to the color computer that way, because all the routines are still there. You'd still have pop-up windows and everything working the same way. Now, there's also another way, like he could have pulled down the menu the same way with alternate E or whatever. You pull down the menu, and the arrow keys control going through the options, and if he wants to use the left and right arrow keys, it'll go between menus. And then once he's in there, like undo, the letter U is underlined. So if he hits U on the keyboard, it goes to the option. Now, this is the thing where the standards have to be figured out. I've looked at several different programs in the PC world and how the Macintosh do it, and they all disagree. Some people say that when you hit U for undo, it should go to undo immediately. Some other programs say when you hit it, it should just select it. You should press enter to select it. Obviously, with a mouse, you just click on it. So what we're going to do, the program right now, anything that's standardized enough that it's in question, which is most everything we're doing here. If there's two ways to do it, that's going to be configurable. And what we're working towards is a file that will go in the user system directory where they configure the thing. They tell it what the menus are going to be, what color they're going to be, what color the menu bars are going to be. If I hit U, will it go to undo, or will it just sit there until I press enter? It's going to end up with a library of things that it reads when a program starts up. So it doesn't matter if 20 different authors write 20 different programs using this interface, they're all going to work the way you want them to. If you've got something that bothers you, like between Coco Max 3 and Max 10, great programs, two completely different authors. Certain things work different ways. The way the menus would pull down was basically the same, but some of them you might have to double click here, and the other program you didn't. Even though they were both fine programs and looked alike, you had to learn two different programs to do the same basic menu selection. So we're getting around that. Let's see, go to, hit enter on something or click on it. Okay, the thing that I think would make this work from a programmer standpoint is when you start, you define at the top of your program what the menus are going to be called. File, edit, text. Okay, and then you go below that and you say, okay, here's what's in the file menu. Load, save, abort, quit, format, destroy, whatever. And then you say, okay, here's what's in the edit menu, here's what's in the text menu. You're putting just text. You're building arrays of characters that say this is what's going to be in that menu. You're not telling it where to put it, how to put it, anything like that. You're just putting text. Then you give that there's a block of memory that's the status. Each option that pulls down, pull down text again, has room on the left of it for a little check mark. On the MM1, it'll be a check mark. On the color computer, it's going to be a little degree symbol because that's the closest thing I could find. And the interface automatically knows if an option has been selected or not. So if you've got italics on, when you pull down the italics menu, there might be a little check mark by italics to tell you what mode you're currently in. It also supports whether an item is selectable or non-selectable. So it might be shadowed so you can't select it with the mouse or the keyboard. That's already built into the routine. The programmer doesn't have to do anything to use that. He doesn't have to go rechange any variables. All he has to do is set a flag that says, okay, this option's now been selected, or this option can't be selected now. If you've got a program that you start up a text editor and you don't have a file in memory, then you can't save. There's nothing to save, so it will be shadowed. As soon as they start typing, you set one flag, and then instantly that option comes back. But basically, all the programmer has to do is set up what the menus are going to say, and that's it. The program takes the menus, it calculates how big they have to be when it first initializes, and then it puts those in variables, so it doesn't have to calculate it each time it runs. Just that very first time you run it, well, each time you run it, it does it right at the start, but not every time it pulls down. That's what I'm trying to say. So it figures out how big the window is, and then it figures out what the biggest word is, so it knows how to space the menus so they don't get on top of each other. It's all automatic. And then the greatest thing about it is the way this is implemented. The programmer doesn't have to write a mouse routine. He doesn't have to write menu calls or anything at all. In the code, at least in C, you've got your main loop inside your main program, and all you just say is, if check menu and option, then do something with the commands. Because that check menu routine is going to return a true or a false. True if something was selected, false if not. So if something's true, then it's told you what menu was selected and what option was. Whether it's by the keyboard, the mouse, whatever, it doesn't care. All you have to do is have that one line, and the entire routine works for the program. You don't have to track the mouse, you don't have to set X and Y coordinates, you don't have to set up anything. It's all going to be handled by it, which makes this probably the easiest interface like this ever to use. I mean, I don't think it's even that easy to write applications under Windows or on a Mac, because with those, I mean, there's still a certain amount of things you have to do by hand. Now the disadvantage with this is there's some limitations with how this is set up. It wouldn't work good necessarily for a word processor. If because of the mouse control. What do you see with that? What it can't do?
Well, I'm still looking at a lot of things. I'm still working on my word processor too, so I'm finding a few limitations in mine. It's hard because you want to have the Alt keys be able to pull down certain menu items as well. But it'd be nice to have the Alt keys be able to toggle some of the things inside the menu. But if you have the same first letter inside of some of the other ones, you have to get really different combinations. Like Alt, I'm trying to think of something, but it would be some things that wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't expect to hit Alt Q for bold or something, but
Alt Q for undelete and Alt Q for underline.
I mean, but after a while, there's just so many letters. Usually the popular letters like save and shell and things like that.
Well, that's why icons are used. It's not because you keep reading text.
So you can have letters for everything. You don't have to worry about letters.
You don't have to worry about running out the alphabets, and sometimes it's quicker to recognize. And things that you have to make a long string out to tell what it is. Sometimes a little symbol. Once you learn that symbol there, you know, it's like creating your own new alphabet. You know, you make it anything you want, you see. And so you use an icon for that, and it drops down. You know, a lot of people say, well, what are all these icons? You know, you hear that in the computer magazines and stuff. Can't people read anymore? Well, it's not because they can't read. Is sometimes it's very easier to identify it with just a symbol. Because
working on this and developing and doing things. And I want to, once we get this, the ideas standard, I'm going to write the first revision, and I'm going to send the source code out to people that know what they're doing. And we're going to pass it around, and we're going to say, well, did you know if you changed it this way and reverse this loop, you'll get a smaller, faster program? Or if you know if you did this little trick, you could do this. And you know you could get rid of all this. There's all these little things that I don't know. And if we can bounce little ideas back, and one reason that it remains under sub-thesis control is that way it's not a bunch of people working on things together, arguing with each other. It all passes through a central point. And to a certain extent, Joel and myself end up being in control of it. But it's a judgment thing. If two different programmers submit a way to do something, then we tell all the other programmers and say, well, what do you think? What are the pros? What are the cons? Is this going to work? And some of the problems that we have to figure out right now is the way I've got it set up is basically a cross between Tandy Decimate for the Tandy 1000s and Microsoft Windows. The way Tandy Decimate does it and the way Joel did it in Checkbook Plus, which was how I used to think was the best way, is if a menu pulls down and it has load, save, save as, and all that, you hit the first letter, and it goes to the first thing it finds with an S. So if you've got save, save as, shell, and you want to get to shell, you hit SSS. And then you hit S again, it goes back to the top. It just toggles through. It's a real simple way. S is always one of those things. But you just have to watch what it goes, or you can use the arrow keys or whatever. The way Microsoft Windows does is they select a certain letter and underline it under each option. There will be no duplicates, which means if you have save and save as and shell, that means S might be save, the A in save as might be save as, the E in shell might be that. So it means that there's one key per thing, but E means shell. So it's a little more difficult there. Of course, it's on the screen right in front of you and it's underlined. And you can just click on it anyway, and most people probably won't be using the keyboard in a text interface, but sometimes it's just much faster. So things like that have to be, we have to figure out what do we want? What do we need in a system like this? What is great about this is, I'm sure we've all seen little address book programs and little videotape logs, and you type and it's on the screen and it clears the screen and it goes again, real basic things. Well, imagine the same thing written like this. It does the same thing, but all your menus there, you're not remembering, not bringing up help screens and things like that. It's all there. So it would make even the simple programs suddenly be a lot more powerful. They would look a lot better, and our friends with the IBMs wouldn't laugh at it as much. That's always the important thing. But there's limitations to everything. We've also got to find out, at the top of the screen, I've got about, file, edit text, and then help over at the corner. I believe in having a credit screen somewhere that you click on and it pops up with a box that says, this is the program, this is who sells it, this is who wrote it, and here's something else you might want to know about it, what version it is. I think there always needs to be an easy way, because if you're talking to somebody and it's like, oh yeah, you got such and such, well mine doesn't do that, well what version is it? Oh, I don't know, hold on, let me look in the help file of the docs or something. That information needs to be apparent. If I call up somebody and I want to know, you got that word processor Bob Daniel did? Oh, yeah. It's right there so you can get that information.
What I found pretty convenient is use it on your quick box. So in the little corner in the box, when you click that corner that does that pops up. Copyright above
now that's
that.
your little logo, like that little strongware logo?
No, just the little close box, like a,
Oh, okay.
When you hit the close box, it will pop up a copyright statement, version number, and then underneath it'll say quit, and there'll be some buttons, yes or no.
Oh, put that in like the title screen, I mean the closing screen before it exits?
Yeah, because it's so easy, sometimes you mouse or something and hit the wrong thing. Sometimes you don't want the application to disappear instantly on you. You want to have a yes-no option, okay? That way if you do something accidentally, you know, or too fast or something like that, and click on that, then you haven't lost everything, because a lot of the sometimes the quits and doesn't do anything other than that, quitting. And so it makes it kind of nice. You can pop up your copyright statement. It's like maybe one little character in the corner or something. If you're on a graphic screen, one little box, and they always know they can go to that box in the corner and pick it up to quit the application.
Okay.
And also you can tell them what programmer, version number, and so on in that box in the corner.
Okay. See, that's something that I hadn't really thought about, is things like that. Right now, I want there to be a credit screen with I want there to be a help thing on the screen. I want alternate H or clicking on the word help to give some kind of help, even if it just says read the menu. Even if it's just a menu of commands or control keys for a word processor, or how to activate X modem on a download program or something like that. Because we don't have enough programs that have built-in help. And sure, we can read the manuals, we can spend time, we can learn them, then we don't need the help anymore. But the learning curve, virtually every piece of software we've had to sit there and play with and use and read manuals and toy with and learn. And you can sit down on a Mac or a Windows machine and play through their help menus all day. It may not tell you as much as reading the book, but it's there, you know how to search things. So I want something on the screen that triggers help. And then that's up to the programmer. I mean, I'm not going to force anybody to present this. I mean, how do you say what's the best way to teach somebody how to do something? There's not.
How do you put the help information on a program like that?
Oh, gosh.
It doesn't need it.
Yeah.
It doesn't need it. I posted that on the databases, didn't put anything on it, but all kinds of comments, had people copying ideas and the way it was laid out and everything. Essentially, no docs, except, okay, go play with it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, as long as there's some way to do that for the programs that need it, and we have something that says, now as far as exiting the program, right now, the way that's commonly done, it's Alt-F, Q enter. That's just about every program that runs under Windows or whatever. Under the file menu, that's where your quit option is, and then it's going to ask you, are you sure, yes, no, or cancel. So to shut down a program would the keyword be Alt, F, Q, enter, Y, enter, or spacebar enter, whatever to select the yes, and you're going through all that. So maybe a close box would be the easiest thing where you don't have to pull down menus to do it.
Also, the close box, a lot of applications, you have both. You can hit the corner box, okay, and it'll pop up and close, yes, no. If you hit the file menu, drop down, quit, it skips the yes, no box.
Well, I would want to probably put the yes, no on all of them because it's real easy, especially if you were to bump something.
Well, the other thing usually on the file menu box, if you don't quit, it keeps track if you made any changes.
So it's going to come up and ask if you want to save.
Yeah, right. You have made changes. These have not been saved.
Okay.
Well, and the other way with just the close box, it just comes up and says you want to quit, yes, no. It doesn't tell you you have to save the file at that point.
Okay.
You say.
Well, we need to figure out how these things are going to work. We need to figure out what's going to benefit the most users. Then we have to figure out what other routines need to be provided. Like with Joel's word processor, find your word processor. Bring that up. Oh yeah, check with, okay, yeah, that's a good example. Here, go ahead and show it. The way he's got it, this was the original idea, where he's got the deselected text, and all this was basically done by hand to get it all to work right. Each menu was basically its own little routine with some main subroutines controlling it all. And when you turn around and have to write a completely new program, you can take bits and pieces, but you got to start all over. But what type of show some of your dialog boxes that pass things.
Yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people think that user interfaces are just menus that drop down. They forget about the dialog boxes. They forget about everything. It's the entire look and feel. I mean, even if you just say press enter to continue, that's the user interface. It's how you're interacting with the user. And you don't want to just focus too much on the menu structure. You also have to provide dialog boxes among lots of other things.
show one of the load file boxes. Some things that aren't even in my routine yet because I don't really know how to do it. I'm new at. See, I can sit down with any language and give me a month of some manuals, and I'm pretty sure I can program it. I feel confident enough after spending 13 or more years playing with computers that I can do that. But actually knowing the best way to do something is what takes this experience. Okay, like with this file request, it pops up with a list of files that you can go through and select. I think something like that's very important. If I'm writing a program and I want to load a file, and I can call a routine that says load file, if load file, and it tells me true meaning yes, we got one, false meaning we didn't, or whatever, and then that just points me to the name that they selected, and that's great. My work of loading the file is great. I don't even have to pop up a box and say enter the file you want to load. I can just say if load file, then load it. And so it'll pop up a box, and they can scroll through with scroll bars, or click on it, or whatever, or type the name in, or change directories, or whatever to the little file requester.
Like I said, I disagree. Most of them are just scroll boxes. You cannot type in the
Okay,
you cannot change a directory within that. You see in the Amiga, you usually allow them to do that in their file requester boxes. Also in the Atari ST.
See, John has a file requester that he's been working on that the graphics on the MM1, and it pops up, and I mean, you can do anything. You can load any file, get to any directory from this box. Once it pops up, there's no change directory commands or anything like that. Once that box pops up, you have complete control over where you go to the hard drive. If you want to type in a path to someplace on a different floppy, you can do that. And we need to probably put something like that in the program. Now, the problem is when you start putting all these features in, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then that's bad. If somebody's writing his little address book, we don't want a massive program that's got all these routines tied onto it. So I'm kind of thinking of making it a library, so when the program compiles, it only pulls in what it needs. If you don't use the file requester, then it doesn't put it in. If you want to just pop up and say, enter your file, then that's fine. If that's going to take up too much memory, then the programmer should be free to make that choice, because sometimes it's not better to make it bigger. I mean, you may not want to, say, well, gosh, it would be neat to have this mouse-driven routine to move through the directory structure, but it's only used one time, and it's going to make the program 8K bigger, so that might not be a good trade-off. But we've got to figure out how these little boxes are going to work. We need to figure out what we need. We need one that is a file selector, so we can use that for loading and saving files. We need one that would ask you the name of something. So when you're saving a database or a word processor or anything for that matter, it pops up and it lets you type the name, or maybe lets you click through the directory tree and find a file and click on its name so you can save it on top of that or something like Windows does. These are some basic, simple things that have been around forever and on other platforms, it seems, and we still don't have them here. There's a couple of shareware programs that do it really well. You're the only one. John Strongware is the only company that does these little things. I look at some of his little icon editors, or all the little things he's got, and he's got these little bitty touches that you just don't see. And I think what it is, a lot of the really true die-hard color computer hackers haven't had the experience to sit down with an Atari ST or on a Macintosh or a Windows and sit there and look at how they work. Because
the other thing is,
because a lot of times, if you've got a directory structure like I had on my hard drive that crashed in Iowa, if you're looking for a file that's 3 levels deep on another subdirectory of something else, and you're going through this point thing, you could be clicking for hours before you finally get to it. So I believe in making this thing be able to completely work without using a mouse, and people that want to type and just use a keyboard, it would. Another reason I believe we don't have a lot of software that uses interfaces like this is simply because it's a hassle. A programmer wants to rush something out and get it there, and it's like, man, I don't want to have to do these menu routines. It's going to take me another week to sit there and make them all look good and make them work the way that I'm proud to put my name on it. But if you provide them with something like this, it's like, well, I don't want to put these menus in. I'm going to have to put 2 extra commands in my code. And so, I mean, it gets rid of that argument. Where's Rod?
in my opinion, if the guy's worried about 2 more commands in his code, I don't think I want his product in the first place. I want to know what other dozen commands he left out that should have been there.
We will be making a move to get rid of cutesy startup screens like Joel does on all this stuff. Nothing that sparkles, nothing that swirls, no.
Startup screens are the most important part of the program. Okay. It just got voted down.
Joel does some things in his routine. He had some real fancy looking boxes with shadows that you can see the text under and everything. And so once we get the actual interface working, when we turn it over to somebody like Joel, or whatever group of MM1 programmers we get working on this project, they're going to do the M1 version with graphics and rounded edges and three-dimensional boxes. And so I think it's going to be a big surprise when I sit there and write my ultimate video tape library catalog program or something, and then it gets ported to the M1 and suddenly looks like this with shadows in the boxes and things. All that's very easy to do with this interface. So the M1 version is going to work the same way, but it's going to look like $1 million.
I think that the mentality of like the color computer, because they always, you know, graphic screens take up too much memory, but they've always seen my mouse-driven software on graphic screen. And it's kind of a mental block. They don't think of using a text cursor. It's always, you've always been able to do it, and it'd be very simple. A lot of people would love to use mouse software on text screens, but it's just never been done. I think it's just a kind of, they just haven't thought that you know how to do it. And I think it's.
Well, where did you see it first?
I saw it on an MS-DOS machine.
Yeah. So it's one of those ideas that, you know, maybe we could have been doing that for the last 13 years, 12 years, whatever. And so we want to work on that. So this will make software on the M1, you know, will all have a consistent, fancy look with shadows and rounded edges and whatever we decide to do to make it look really nice and fancy. The color computer software on the text screen won't have that. It won't look as good, but it'll have the pull-down windows. It'll be fast, and it'll be a compromise. We get the same functionality.
Is that once you just do that simple little program that doesn't look so great on the CoCo, maybe not, but once it goes to the M1, it'll look great without any extra effort. It'll just fall right into the interface and just fit right in, and you'll have a lot more software.
Now, last night I gave him a disk with the source code to this demo on it, and I said, here, make it work on the M1. And you were up for how long?
It took like 10 minutes. All I had to do was just remove one piece of code to start up the mouse, because the mouse is always started up on the M1, and that was it.
But on the actual package, it's going to have, you know, things in there that control whether it's compiling on what or something, or we'll have two different versions of the libraries eventually. And you know, if he can spend 10 minutes to make the entire demo with all the menus that are working so far in 10 minutes, I mean, that's the hardest part, getting that to work on a different system. The actual program itself, but as long as that's kept within the boundaries of, you know, a certain size screen or whatever, that's good. Something that's already in the backbone of the routine, that's not supported at all yet, which would be great on the MM1, and unless we see the upgraded level 2, wouldn't help us at all. But it's resizable windows. This routine, when it starts up, will be making a call to see what size of window it's on. If you start it up on a little 40-column window or some really weird thing off in the corner of your screen, it's going to say, well, we've only got this much room, so I got to scale the menus to fit. And as long as it's within enough space to run, it'll run and it'll be happy and content. It's up to the program's author to make sure that everything else that goes on fits. So that might be the thing. Now on the MM1, they have a way, how's this screen resizing? What can you do? I can't do it.
It's scalable. It's difficult. You yourself have to take care of screen resizing. There's a screen resize option in K Windows, but it really doesn't. It just resizes the screen for you, and you have to take into account yourself. So you have to do scaling. If you're going to click the mouse, you have to make sure that it's clicked in the right area and stuff like that. So it's not any more simple.
It would be conceivable with what we could do with this routine, though, to make these programs happy to start up on whatever kind of screen you start up on, whatever kind of size. And then the only thing the program author would have to do is he would have to know how wide and tall the screen is and make sure he keeps his stuff in that boundary. And if we got to the point where it was really easy just to move something on the M1 and bring it down or stretch it up or whatever, then you might stretch it up and then within a second of doing that, the program squeezes its menus big or gets them wider again and everything slides back on. And now that's something that even the new Amigas do, the new Workbench does. But on the old Amigas, you'd move a screen down and you couldn't see it all. And then you'd stretch it back up and then you'd have all this white area where it didn't, nothing was there. We have the capability of actually doing that on the MM1 better. If we had resizable windows in the color computer, we might do that too. But that's not the focus of this. But the point of that is say you write a little quick and dirty script file under OS 9 that pops up a window on the screen so you can run a shell command or whatever. Well, you could write a quick and dirty routine that pops up an overlay window and then runs a word processor on it. And then when it's done, it goes away and your screen was just like it was before it starts. You could run programs in overlay windows without having to set up a new screen or anything like that for something you were doing quick. I don't know how, there's enough utilities out there now to pop new screens and to port programs, and it's real easy to redirect. But sometimes it might be neat just to run something real quick and be like Sidekick. We have no program like Sidekick because you can't just pop something up and run it easily. The program has to be specifically written for that. Well, this could let, by theory anyway, it could let any program run like a sidekick program where, you know, it could pop up on top of the screen that you're currently using. You could use it when you want it to go away. It goes and everything's like it was, even if it was a full application, a text editor, or a database. But, you know, I mean, that's not going to be the focus. But there's all kinds of tools.
You can open a window on top of each other now.
Can you have overlapping windows like that now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. So see, a lot of this stuff would probably, I mean, have good advantages. But what we need is we need everybody here to, you know, to talk about this and start thinking of ideas. Look at programs you've seen on the color computer, on DOS machines, Apples, whatever. Look at what you like. Look at what you thought was easy to use. Find the ways that you like it and get those ideas to us somehow. We want to find programmers that are interested in this, and we're going to get people together to work on the code. We're going to get end users together to talk about what they think is the easiest way to do it. And eventually we might be able to have this set up so basic 09 programmers could write for it. C programmers will be able to. Assembly language programmers could do stuff with it. If we can get our assembly experts and various other experts to work together on this. And
get about 2 or 3 more of me so we can do all my projects.
We need callers, man. Oh, I got a couple of things I'm going to drop on you pretty soon to give you even more stuff you won't be able to do. Yeah. Oh, you just wait. This is going to be good. But there's a lot of potential with what this is. I do want to ask a question. What? You don't like Windows, do you?
Huh?
You don't like Windows, do you?
Windows?
Yeah. Where they like to be able to point and click. That's one of the people that love point and click and think that's the only way to go. Okay, we got a couple.
But at the same time, I prefer to use hotkeys.
Okay.
Along with the mouse environment, as opposed to typing into full-line text to do specific functions.
Okay.
Certain types of things, okay, simply do not lend themselves well to click.
I will agree with that.
Like the word processor.
Well,
you want to go to fold, because you don't want to fold on fold and then
yeah, well, certain things about word processor, it's real nice to have a mouse too, but you don't use it for everything. It needs to be, we can't force people to use a mouse. Nothing I hate worse is typing along in the program, like, I think Max 10 is this way. And you'll be typing along and then you'll want to do something, and you got to go and pull this down, select, and then as soon as you select, you got to type some more and make it go away, and then select more, and then go back to what you're doing. And that, I want that to avoid. We've got to avoid that.
Yeah, you have to avoid that.
Every application's going to come out. It's going to use this interface, and we're going to get the big heads and be, you know, ego-driven because our interface is being used. Because it's not. It's going to be the communities. It's free to use, no royalties. You know, it's, you know, the development system's free, source code free.
Do you support MGR?
Well, I don't know. I'm talking to Scott Griffenhog about making it support term cap and use strictly screen codes and a buffering thing that he's already got routines for, so we could end up with routines that do this that work completely over a VT100 terminal or an ANSI terminal. So you could write a program like like the text-based checkbook plus that can run on an ANSI terminal across a modem completely.
MGR will do that.
Okay, that's what we're looking at.
What does MGR stand for?
I'm not sure. It's a graphic interface. It's sort of like X Windows, but much smaller. It's a server that serves your graphics for your stuff. It sort of like intercepts your standard out and stuff, and it runs a lot like display codes, like K-Windows or Coco stuff does. In fact, I wrote my first MGR program, took it over to Stefan's, our Peter's machine. Stefan was playing MGR. I drew a couple lines today in assembly, just to see if I was understanding what was going on. And it's set up so it runs event-driven back to you, looking through the sample definition files. It supports BitBlock copying and all this stuff, and supports this over modem lines. So, you know, it looks like there's a really excellent capabilities.
So MGR is a software package that interfaces to a screen.
Yeah.
It's a specific piece of hardware that it has to be written for, but MGR is the interface code for that particular hardware device.
MGR it's written in C, it's portable, it runs on a lot of different machines. It's also, it might be the OSK community solution to writing graphic software that will run in Japan and Europe and the United States.
If we move to something like that, then anything we do like this would definitely end up running on that, because that's another big boundary.
The price on MGR, as far as the runtime module,
It's
It's like
like $80.
$80. MDR itself is actually public domain. Okay, what you are buying is their tools and their desktop and the way he's put the library together so you can use it. Yeah.
So it's the development, it's the development software you're actually buying for $80.
Well, no. The development system is $1,300.
Oh.
Now that's just software?
That's
not,
just
that's not a hardware piece of equipment?
No, that is not hardware.
It's just,
The $80 is like gives you their desktop and the libraries that goes through it. So whatever programs you have that runs under MDR will run on your machine.
I see.
It's sort of like you look if you know what K Windows is, compare it to K Windows. Okay, in a way. Without all Kevin Darling.
Somebody else has already done this. Somebody else has already done this. I couldn't find anybody else that's already done this, so we're doing it. And spread the word. What I need to do is, Subject to Software needs to hear from people that are interested in coding for this. We need to hear from people that have ideas about why something should work. And I don't want, we don't need it. You know, and I'm going to be excited, and after about a month or so, and I'm going to be doing this. And look, I've got a closed box now, and look what I've got. And I upload my first major address book program, and it sits there, and I'm like, okay, that's one good program. Okay, I converted my banner program with drop-down windows and everything, and pretty soon I get really ticked off and go out and buy a DOS machine and try to figure out how to copy a disk or something.
Right. Well, we gotta have feedback, because otherwise, if you don't like something about it, it's not supposed to be, GUI isn't supposed to be graphical user interference, it's supposed to be user interface, and so if you see something you don't like, text user interface, UI, user interference, you don't want it to interfere with you don't want it to slow you down, you want it to help you out, that's why it's there. And if you can do it a faster way, this is what it's supposed to be.
This is kind of if they want icon-based software, there's certain things like John and I have a project internally running in the back burner, which is going to be a complete point-and-click adventure system. And we know how that's going to work, and you're not going to have to do any typing. We want to bring something like a Sierra game to the color computer in the end of once. That can be done. So we've got something along those lines. And then for things like this, we've got the window interface and all that. So, you know, we want to do it. Just think about it. Come by the booth, talk to us. Tell all your C programmer friends. If you program in C or whatever, let us know. Get us some ideas. If you want to get on the team to work on this project, let us know. It's something that's going to be falling together pretty soon. I'm probably going to start giving out the brute force sample code that I've got real soon to let people start telling me what I'm doing wrong before I get further and further into the spaghetti code. So let's head back to the room, and John can show me how to use the joystick. Sure. Oh, that was your
Yes, you know, they're doing a magazine like Rainbow is going to be possible. The numbers aren't there. You don't have the users, you don't have the advertisers, and what it costs to produce a commercial publication like that is just phenomenal. Most people, and I would venture to say just about everybody in this room, has no idea what it costs to go to a commercial printer and have a magazine produced. I am a commercial printer, that's why I say you don't know. Just as an example, 1 hour of press time, and you're looking at 3 hours to make ready before you print a single page. 1 hour goes for $350, okay? That doesn't include binding. Binding time goes $150 an hour. You have an hour of setup there, and before you get to any of that, you've got preliminary, which goes for $700 an hour, and you're looking at 5 hours minimum for 8 pages. Yeah, so it gets to be expensive. And let's face it, you know, there isn't anybody out there that's going to do a Rainbow again. So, you know, I'm sad that it's gone, but it really was inevitable. They have gone too far in the publishing business to be able to go back to what they were when they first started. So, what you're looking at are newsletters and small publications like the OS9 Underground, help me out here, JWT, MOTD, JWT Enterprises, what's the name of theirs? Uptime, that's it. Uptime. Publications like this, where I can take my camera-ready copy to a small printer, say, here, make me 500 of these. And yeah, that's economically feasible. That's where your support is going to be. You've got to support them. You know, take a subscription. If you don't like it, I don't say take a subscription just to subscribe, but get a subscription to a magazine that you like, that you feel is good format, and support them. Don't read somebody else's copy and say, yeah, that's nice, and keep reading their copy. If you like it, subscribe, because if you don't, it's going away. And there's not going to be anything to take its place. Basically, we're in our last hurrah, and it can be as long a hurrah or as short as we make it. Clubs. Most clubs put out a newsletter. All clubs ought to put out a newsletter. The reason for this is it reminds people that you're there. A lot of people pay their dues and then forget about the club. You send them a newsletter, it says, hey, we're still here, we care about you, why don't you come visit us? Or in our case, the Glenside Club being so large that a lot of people can't make meetings, it says, hey, we're here to support you, don't forget, if you're having problems, there's a whole bunch of people that you can call on, and please do it. That's what we're here for, support. I got a phone call the other day from somebody in Maine, and he says, I don't even have a Radio Shack anywhere near me. How can I get an extra drive on my CoCo? I said, well, that's easy. Go to Tandy, pay $150, and they'll put it in for you. Or go to a flea market, pick up a regular IBM type drive for $15 or $20. Go to an electronics store, even if it's Radio Shack, buy a little card edge connector, crimp it on, plug it in, and you're all set to go. He called me back the next day. He said, well, I went to the flea market, I picked up a drive, I just put it all together, it took me an hour. He says, and I'm going. He says, my total cost, $17. He says, I would have gone to Radio Shack and paid $150. That's not too bad. An hour of time, and you saved $130 and 2 phone calls. Not bad. But what was it? There was somebody to call to help talk him through it. He was afraid to do it by himself. If I hadn't been there to answer the phone, who knows, he might have paid the $150. But for what? Then he's got that much less to spend somewhere else. Somebody that needs it. Tandy doesn't need it. Tandy's selling enough without, they're making enough without hurting the little user. Basically, they forsook us, and because when you go into a Radio Shack nowadays and you try to get any support for your CoCo, it's very hard. I'm fortunate I have a good store, but I hear too many horror stories nowadays. So we can't expect Tandy to support a machine that they've discontinued. It's not economically feasible for them. They're in business. They're big business. So support your clubs. I'll put in a little kicker for the Glenside. You know, I think Glenside's an excellent club to belong to. If you use OS9 at all, the OS9 user group is an excellent group to join. There's a lot of knowledgeable people. And that's what you need, especially if you're starting out in OS9. It's a lot of fun. I know when I first started OS9, my phone bill almost doubled. The nearest person was a toll call. So yeah, I've got a little problem. As soon as I boot up and I change directories, I can't read directories anymore. Oh, did you load directory into memory? Oh, you have to do that? You know, I didn't know, and it didn't say it in the docs either. Okay? When you are first starting out, you know nothing. It's little things like that that keep you from using the system. I was very fortunate that I had people very close to help me, you know. And that's what the user groups are all about, you know. There's patches, you know, that are available. I haven't seen an MOTD yet, so I don't know what the format is. But I would venture to say that there's a lot of help in the MOTD. I know there's a lot of help in the Glenside newsletters. Basically, if anybody asks a question and Tony finds out about it, and they get an answer, it gets in the newsletter. It's what the club is all about. It's what I think just about any user group is about. If anybody is interested in starting a club, the best thing I can say is find 5 or 6 people in the area that use the same type of computer and have similar interests to your own. And then pick a day that's good for all of you. Have a meeting of an hour or 2 hours, and afterwards go out for coffee and sit around and talk. Meetings don't need to be formal unless you're a large group. But having a place to meet, like a library, is very important. You need a location that's always the same, and you need a date that's always the same. If you start moving the location or start moving the date around, people have a tendency to not know what's going on, and it's like, oh, I missed that one. I thought it was on Tuesday, it was on Thursday this month, so I missed that meeting. And pretty soon, nobody shows up. So, consistency is important when you're having meetings. For the CoCo, in the future, I envision the community getting smaller, just like the Timex Sinclair group has been getting smaller, but I don't foresee it being a drastic drop in numbers. I think most of the people that are still using CoCos are doing it for 2 reasons. Number one, they like the machine. It's a powerful little computer, especially using OS 9. And the second thing is, we've got all this time and money invested in this little machine, and we don't see the need to buy the latest and greatest. I have the latest and greatest, and I use my CoCo. Newsletter exchange with several other clubs. Information gets passed around this way that wouldn't be passed around otherwise. You have Delphi, which has a very active CoCo SIG, very active OS 9 SIG. You have Internet, you have UUCP, you have CompuServe. Now, I don't want to say that. CompuServe really isn't a CoCoist forum anymore. There's very little activity on it. Genie has a fairly active CoCo SIG in it. Probably dollar for dollar, Delphi is your best bet. And you have some very knowledgeable people that are in there all the time. That, your clubs, and a fest like this is what you're going to be looking for support. I'm saddened that a lot of other people that could have made this fest didn't make it. I know it's hard to travel 200, 300, 500 miles, you know, just for a weekend and explain it to your wife, or a few thousand. But I've been doing it. I've made every CoCoFEST there is. When I say CoCoFEST, I mean real CoCoFEST. I can't really call Pacific Northwest one a CoCoFEST until they get up over attendance of over 100, 150 regularly. It's more of an area type thing, but I've made all the Atlanta ones. I've made all the Rainbow Fests since '85. And that's what I feel support is. You know, you're supporting the community by being there so that these fests go on, so the vendors can come and show their wares, and you can take back the information and say, hey, I saw a really neat program at the fest. here's the name, here's the guy that's selling it, and I've got a copy, and I'm going to demo it for you guys. You know, that's where your support is going to be, the user group. That MFS, Delphi. The thing is, with Delphi, you don't get to see the commercial products. The same thing with advertising in a magazine. You don't actually get to see it run. Okay, you come to a fest, you can talk to the author, you see it running, it's nice. Yes, sir.
Speaking of not being able to see the product, I'm going to be starting hopefully soon, a CoCo MM1 OS9 RS-DOS community video newsletter. And it's going to have fast coverage, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to be going to Glenside and OS9 and taking footage of that. And also I'm going to include product demos on the tape. So
and as
receiving...
soon as you get big enough, you're going to go and cover the EFFO meetings and the Euro OS9 meetings, right?
And so bi-monthly, it will be like going to a Rainbow Fest or a CoCoFEST.
Okay, here's another excellent idea. I hope that it works out for you. Something that you might want to think about is talk to some of these people that belong to other clubs. Maybe somebody can bring a video recorder to their meetings and send you footage. Nothing wrong with that. You don't know until you ask people. So there you go. Get his name if you belong to a club and you have a video camera. Take some footage of your meeting and send it to Dave.
What is your name?
Dave, my name is...
camera too.
My name is Dave Pellerito. Last name is spelled Pellerito. My address is 1325 West Lincoln Highway, apartment 412A, and that's DeKalb, Illinois, 60115.
Okay, now, if anybody has any questions about the Glenside Club or anything, why don't you ask me now, and I'm going to let Peter get up here. Or any questions about, or comments about.
Is Glenside recording now?
Do we record anything? Yeah, right now. Other than that, no. Rather unique idea. Nobody thought of it before this. I like the idea. Supposed to be supporting. I would say probably 85% of our members are active CoCoists. And we probably have one of the largest OSK bases of a user group that is supposed to be a CoCo club. We have people like Eddie Coons and Mike Knudsen, Chris Hawks, Paul Jacadis. I would almost be willing to venture. I don't know what their sales were on the MM1, but I'd say we probably have about 10% of the owners in our club, one way or another. At least here in the States. But we are not directing ourselves at OS9. We're basically supporting the color computer. That's what it says in our bylaws. That's what we're going to continue to do until we change the bylaws. Peter, I'm going to let you get up here and talk about OS9. Oh, we have a question.
I'm looking, trying to think what the distribution of user groups throughout the United States is. Are they concentrated on the eastern United States, or are there very many out west? You know, Tandy is a Texas corporation, but I've not seen much in the news about very many user groups originating from Texas or Arizona.
Well, I know of one. I know of one in Texas, Deltrug. It's not a CoCo-specific group, but Lee Veal, who's selling Planet Engine, is a member of that club. You might want to talk to him if you were interested in the Texas area. Alan Huffman is from Texas also, and I believe that he belongs to a different group. I'm not sure. You know, the worst part of our community is the fact that there are a bunch of small clubs out there that don't stay in touch with anybody. And we have no way of getting a hold of them and saying, hey, look, guys, you know, why don't you communicate with us? That's what is really needed, is some way to get all these people, all these users together. That's basically what the Glenside Club has been trying to do.
That's it for this issue. Guess what? It's good for something. There is a full-length, unedited, DOS burning video available. Contact Digigrade Productions for details.